more visible. But yeah, I think we can start because we have some people.
Okay, my name is Naoko Mabon. I'm one of the co-lead of Collective Cares. Today we have Luyando Muleya, who is another co-lead of Collective Cares. And also we welcome today Livingstone-based artist Mutemwa Mukelebai. So Collective Cares is a new peer-led curatorial initiative for contemporary arts in Zambia. Myself and Luyando are leading it, but we are supported by growing peers. We are trying to initiate this hybrid space, like both physical and digital space for conversations and research and collaboration. So this Instagram Live is one of those spaces. Hopefully we can, test out and nurture how that works out. Is a series of studio visit, roughly one monthly series. We try to visit artists and make a conversation rather than interview. We are trying to make a conversation and try to have a space where we think together and develop relationship together. The first one was Isaac Karambata, visited by Luyando. And the second one was Laurier Piri, visited by myself virtually. And then the third one was quite recently in May, visited by Luyando to Mutemwa Mukelebai. Just first of all, Luyando, can you tell us about, your experience about the visiting Mutemwa's studio, including who he is, what he does, because including myself, some of the audience don't know about what Mutemwa does or who he is.
Thank you so much, Naoko. It's super amazing that we're getting to do this Instagram Live as well as activating studio visits. Like you mentioned, the first studio visit we did of this year was with Isaac Kalambata. I visited him in Lusaka, and unfortunately, we couldn't do the studio. We couldn't do the Instagram Live because of it became a bit complex with him being on a. My bad. But yeah, so it's amazing now that we've gotten to finally do the studio visit with Mutemwa Mukelebai. I've known about his practice since 2024. I think about 2 years now. I knew about him first as an artist as a sculptor who makes wood um, wood carvings. So he extracts dead woods and then he makes wood carvings. But then what made the wood carvings interesting was that he added lenses to the wood carvings. Hopefully, in some of the images we'll be able to share. Right now, there's a sculpture of a monkey with some lenses, but then it's not in frame because we can't do much with the framing. Yeah. But that was at least that was something that was very interesting when I saw some of the sculptures at the National Art Gallery here in Livingstone. Yeah, I've been working with him. I've been wanting to learn from him because he's an elder. He's a contemporary artist, and how he practices is not just about wanting to make beautiful objects or beautiful sculptures, but then he attaches utility to the sculptures that he makes. There are also certain narratives that he drives around, that narratives that he attaches to the artworks that he makes. Right now, I think from here you'll be able to see there's a body of the microscope here. He calls it ikasuwa. Ikasuwa is a Luyana word. Luyana is also would you call it a language or a tribe? Tribe, I think, yeah. Luyana is from the western part of Zambia, similar to Lozi. So Luyana, the microscope, he calls it ikasuwa, and in Luyana, ikasuwa is the last standing buffalo in a herd, almost like the buffalo that the herd relies on as the last standing herd. He says that because he's been developing this microscope for some time now, And from the microscope, hopefully when we share more images, like detailed images of the microscope, you can see like that the barrel of where the lens is holding is made from a discarded umbrella. So the handle of an umbrella. And there's also something that looks like a floppy disk. It's what he uses as a stage of the microscope. So for me, it's very interesting, and I've really appreciated that with collective cares, we've been able to document his practice. Because I think we're gonna go online right now to kind of look up some of his work or what he's been doing. There's not much documentation being done about his practice, not just his practice, but about other local practitioners who are working outside Lusaka and who are working outside perhaps the capitals here in Zambia or even Southern Africa. So at least it's an honor and a privilege that I get to have a conversation with Mutemwa, who is, if it's describing his practice, there's a word I used, polymath. Yeah, because he stargazes using his handmade telescopes. He's a basic scientist, a biologist. I think from the background, if you can see this image, it's an image of a cell, malaria plasmodium. Now that I've learned, um, he's got more of these images that hopefully in this conversation we're going to talk about possibilities of exhibiting as one of the dreams that he has. He's also a carver, as you can see from this. This is the Mungongo tree, right? This is Mungongo tree. It also has oils, but then he's carved this mask from Mungongo tree. He also carves on stone. Um, he grinds his own lenses. It was funny, at least first time I learned about it, like, oh, you can grind, you can make a magnifying glass or a lens using discarded TV glass. I didn't know about that. So there's a time, late 2024, when we were about to do an exhibition, we went around scavenging for um, dead TVs, like those old TVs, collected those screens, and then were able to, at least I could witness from start to finish the making of the lens, which was very mind blowing. So today we're getting to speak in depth. Hopefully he can speak more. He can get to talk more about his practice. It's an opportunity that we get, and then hopefully me and Naoko get to facilitate this conversation in as much as I'm also on the spotlight as I was part of documenting the studio practice. But yeah, that's briefly what I'm gonna talk about. Luyando Muleya, as already mentioned. I'm part of the colleagues, and I'm in conversation with Mutemwa Mukelebai. I think Naoko, it goes back to you, see how we progress from here.
Thank you, Luyando. Thank you. Now to Mutemwa. Can you tell us about what you now we heard about like Luyando's take on, I guess, to describe about yourself, but how do you describe yourself, or how can you tell us about what you do, or possibly why?
Yeah, my name is Mutemwa Mukelebai. I'm a mixed media artist. And that's yeah. Also do I care? I also paint, also create simple machines from studied objects. Yeah, I do a lot. I call myself a mixed media, also background, doing a lot of artworks in different forms.
Do you usually collect lots of materials?
Yeah, yeah, I work on stones. I work on what foods. Also paint. Yeah, sometimes collect waste materials. Out of them, I make some artworks. Yeah, I sell. Above all, I'm a basic scientist. I'm a basic scientist. Still doing making of lenses with the board. Yeah. So from that, I'm able to create microscopes. I'm able to create telescopes.
Do you have a clear vision first? For instance, you want to make telescope, then you collect materials, or you collect them, and then those materials will give you inspiration.
Yeah, sure. In terms of microscopes, what I normally do first, I have lenses. Then I compile them. Now to create a board, I'm sure you are able to see this. Yeah. Are you able to see this?
Yes.
The homemade microscope. I named it ikasuwa, as Mr. Luyando explained to you. The buffalo microscope. So what I normally do, I go to scrap metals, I correct some metals to give you the board. Yeah, then from there I weld, then I measure the focal length, then finally the microscope is made. So it uses lenses and lights. Yeah, with this microscope you'll be able to see a lot of material. Yeah. So then finally I'm able to connect it to a computer where I can store those information that can be seen by this microscope.
Wow.
Yeah, again, besides this, I correct the woods. So,
I think deadwoods is an exciting word to use, specifically deadwoods, not just
yeah.
yes.
So we are encouraged not to bring down trees. What we need. So what I normally do, I go in the wilderness to correct the dead woods, which were left by our predecessors, the early cavers who came before us. So I go there, I correct, I tumble them, then I look at it, then it gives me an image. You can see this way. Are you able to see this?
Yes. Can you bring that a little bit closer, please? Wow.
Yes. A figure of a woman. Depicting the 80s. Like we grew up in the 80s. So this was just a dead old airborne. It was like this was the roots and this was the trunk. So what I do, I go in the wilderness, I correct them, I look at it, and it gives me an image of what I can do on it. And I tell, let me sell it to the galleries. This is what I do. Yeah, besides that, also I correct it because we are living near a quad. So I go there, I correct some stones. This is the stone sculpture. Try you are able to see it.
Oh, wow.
The stone sculpture. Because like we are running out of wood. We are running out of dead wood. So what I normally do, I look for material that I can use it in place of woods. So I discovered that rocks are in abundance and in different forms. So I started experimenting on stones and things like that. Then I came up with this. So this, as you can see, this stone is associated with gold. Yeah, materials here is associated with gold. So I pick it somewhere. I begin to work on it. And finally, I came up with this sculpture.
That reminds me of Luyando showed me one picture of your sculpture in the field, like lots of trees, and then you made sculpture in the tree.
Yeah, the forest spaces. So the sculpture
That was
we are commissioned to do those works, and we are encouraged to do dead ones, dead woods. So with the woods, we are running out of these woods because our environment is now being occupied by developers. So I realized, being an artist, I should find an alternative. And the alternatives are stones and also discarded materials like plastic and that.
Also, Naoko, to add on, briefly, I think when you had asked, he's answered it brilliantly, but you had asked if he already has like ideas on how he's going to, like what the outcome is going to be when he's collecting his materials. So at least he's answered specifically on the lenses. I think on the lenses, it's clear when he collects materials like discarded materials that's going to use for lenses or that's going to do like scientific projects like the microscope or telescope. But what I found interesting is that when he's collecting dead woods, like you also mentioned briefly, is that when he collects the dead woods, he finds that nature already does most of the work for him. So immediately he collects a wood, is going to it already has almost like the tree or the wood is already telling him what its final outcome may look like. So all he has to do is just like add up like final touches. He puts it brilliantly when he talks about it. But I think that's something I wanted to add on so that perhaps you could also just share more detail because I found it interesting that how termites are going to eat up dead wood, how perhaps water is going to mess with the wood, is going to give it a shape that the artist or carver is going to come and then just add like maybe 10% of 10% of his work for the whole thing to be finished up.
It's more like a conversation with the wood. If the material is wood, you don't impose your ideas. More like you, I don't know, by working on the wood, you will reach the point together almost.
Yeah.
Just like I said, the area on this one, when I looked at it, it gave me an of a woman wearing a scarf. So I looked at it, and it gave me an image of women in the 80s. Yeah, so I started working, and it's a beautiful piece.
Because also, I think if you can see clearly, there's also tattoos on the. So briefly, we were just having a conversation before as we were preparing for this video, for this Instagram live. So you're also mentioning how he's using marks as tattoos for identification. Maybe he can perhaps add more to it.
And I'm going to give up okay.
Yeah, even just from here, I think we'll be right on.
Yeah, in the 80s, like where Africa was deeply into its culture. So yeah, we could identify each other by even the way we dressed, the way we are tattooed. You know, those tattoos were able to show us which clan one is coming from. Yeah, this is what used to happen in the 80s. So this sculpture depicts a woman in the 80s. And also, like in the 80s, it was the time, 85, it was the time when we also recorded the first HIV case in Zambia. Yeah, where we lost a lot of our sisters. Yeah, so it reminds me of those times. Yeah, so every time I exhume a dead wood from the ground, I look at it, then it gives me a picture of what I should do. Then give it maybe a 2%, a 1%, a 5%, depending on how it looks. And even people that buy them, they like them a lot because of the combination between an artist and nature.
It's quite interesting to see that. How can I say? Because microscope, you want to see tiny things, and then telescope, you want to see big things or far things. I mean, as Luyando said in his studio visit, the writing, it's your practice. I think this is very well put. But all the disciplines in what you do, it's all the different disciplines kind of dissolved into a single practice of seeing. It's very, very well put. Like you are just very curious about. It doesn't matter how small or how far. You want to see things. Is that what you're driving you?
Yeah, really. Yeah, I'll give a story like in the 80s. Yeah, because I was born in 1978. There in the 80s, I was between 10 and what, 13 years old. There was the prevalence of malaria. A lot of people used to die with malaria, mostly psychosis, like the young ones. So I was very much pleased to discover, to see the malaria plasmodium using my homemade microscope. And because of that, I was forced to start now collecting information, going as far as seeing it, see the interim, to see organelles. So what I'm planning in the future is to have an exhibition where I'll be able to showcase the bacterial cells of different bacteria. Yeah. Because I remember one moment when we were struggling to clean our environment. It was difficult by then without showing the people to help me show them bacteria. So immediately when they saw bacteria, they were able to help join and clean. Yeah, and what bacteria are, how much they are by seeing them in fresh.
And I think just to add on that, Naoko, I think as we were preparing for this conversation, I had a list of some questions that I wanted to ask from Mutemwa, and perhaps even you as a colleague, but also even throughout to the audience who have perhaps engaged with the writing of the studio visit and are also going to engage with this video, because I think that once this video is prepared, it's going to be shared on YouTube and other platforms for people to like relook and engage with. So a question that I had, even as I was preparing the studio visit, as I was engaging with him, was to find out if his practice of seeing goes beyond him. Like, how does his community perhaps benefit from all this? Like, how does his community benefit from him building a single microscope or building a telescope or building this tool that he's building? And throughout the conversations that we've been having, he mentioned that I forget the time period, but perhaps it's going to be able to help out. It was when the then Minister of Health was Dr. Chitalu Chilufya. He mentioned that when he was experimenting with his handmade microscope ikasuwa, he had found out that there was no records of malaria plasmodium in the communities. So he took different water samples from his community, the market, and other spaces, and then found that there was no records of malaria plasmodium. And then a few weeks after that, it was announced on TV or news by the then Minister of Health saying, oh, there's no longer traces of malaria plasmodium. So that was one question that I had, but perhaps I could even re-ask it here to say, how does him, because he's also a teacher. I think some of the youth around here, my peers, we, there's almost looking at him as like, oh, a professor or somebody who teaches. His practice isn't just about him making his own things. There's always a way that in his studio he's working with youths, he's working with young people to kind of teach what he has so that he just doesn't go on. So perhaps I'll just re-ask the same question about to see his response, or maybe hear his response about how his practice extends beyond his individual, perhaps genius or his individual way of working.
Yeah, just like I said earlier, like we are living in a sand compound where people relocate during the environment it was difficult until when we started showing them what bacteria is and what is causing those bacteria. Yeah. Why don't what Mr. Luyando said concerning malaria plasmodium? Yes, indeed, by observing mosquitoes, I stumbled upon malaria plasmodium. Yeah, knowing it, seeing it coming from the abdomen of the mosquito. We need to say this was the plasmodium. Yeah, and the whole through, and they started investigating, going to different places, checking the samples here and there to find the malaria plasmodium. Yeah, until somewhere in 2015. I couldn't find any malaria plasmodium in the environment. Get these mosquitoes, get those mosquito checked here and there. I couldn't find. But some months later, also the government announced that malaria has reduced. And indeed, we can see from this homemade microscope, you were able to have an information before the authority tells you. So it means if we can expand the knowledge of building microscope automatically to help a lot of people. Yeah, to detect bacteria in their environment. We are a nation which is troubled by cholera, and cholera is found in water. Meaning that if we can teach young ones on how to create these, automatically they'll be able to, before they are attacked by cholera, they'll be able to see cholera. Yeah. So I personally use this to clean the environment by showing the young ones that within our environment there are shortage of bacteria. And when immediately saw it, they begin to help me clean the environment.
Mm.
So that's how I use the knowledge.
I think Luyando, you said that in the writing as well, but listening to what Mutemwa said, it's the approach is rather than waiting, waiting to those equipment or those things alive. Actually, you can proactively build things, or it's the microscope or something that seems impossible to build, but actually that's built. You can do it. What amongst what you have.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was also a working line that I had. I think that's what I've been finding to be really important with his practice, because if he, like, outside him being seen as an perhaps an individual genius or an individual brilliant man who's making this work, if his way of working can transcend him, it can be adopted by some other people that he teaches, including me, we may stop to even ask important questions about decolonization. Because I think when we're having a conversation around the theme of decolonization, it's around being able to be self-reliant, being able to not waiting, in a sense, not waiting for other people to solve your own problems. Because we, like in any other part of the world, we face a lot of problems. But what seems to be drawing us back, at least here in Zambia or Southern Africa, is that we were conditioned to wait for some sort of savior to come and help out with the issues that we have or problems that we have. But with the way that he practices, if there's a way that it does extend to being a way of working, even amongst like pupils in schools. Like imagine I went through secondary school, primary secondary school, not being able to see a microscope. The first time I was able to see a microscope is this same ikasuwa microscope that I've seen. And my story is not unique. I think he also went through his primary and secondary school without being able to see a microscope. We've asked around some people when we were showing this sometime last year. Many people, even now, till now, 2026, people in school are still learning from like diagrams in textbooks. But then, as he was even explaining, for very complicated, this microscope, as he puts it, it's not a very complicated machine to build. It's a couple of lenses and light. As long as you have light and lenses, then you're able to build a sort of microscope, which doesn't have to take this form only. It can take different other forms. So meaning other tools can be built, but then it's just that they are presented to us as well finished, very polished. So it seems like it's very out of reach to be able to build this instrument. But with the way he's been practicing, hopefully, as this knowledge just gets to be shared out there, if if communities stop waiting for saviors, or if communities stop waiting for other people to come with other knowledges, perhaps we may start experimenting and then build our own solutions, which isn't very far-fetched if you are speaking with Mutemwa Mukelebai here, who has at least who's counted the spots on the planet Jupiter using his own telescope. It doesn't seem very far-fetched if you're having conversation with the way he's practicing.
No, absolutely. As you said, that what if we stopped waiting for permission to look or permission to build, or rather than waiting? I think that's, as you say, that there is a possibility to adopt this. I don't know what to say. Is that approach or mindset? I guess. I think Mutemwa's practice and also artworks have a power, really have a power, and also, it has a empowerment in itself that it opens up our mind to realize that, hang on, we have all ability, and then we actually have ability to look if we want to look, rather than waiting. I really appreciate Mutemwa. from? Where this desire to see seeing things or doing things rather than waiting? Where this comes from?
Yeah, I believe I was born with the desire to create little things. But I started with the lenses started the way back when I was a little boy there in campus Central Livingstone. So
Mm.
my brother came from school with a small glass, yeah, bottle. So he believed that that bottle was able to enlarge things. So he could call people in the beginning to peer to peek through it and they could see whatever they could see. Now when it came to me, I couldn't see anything. So the search for magnifying glass started. By then I was maybe somewhere before I even started in my primary school. By the age of somewhere 5 to 6 years, I started searching for magnifying glasses. They were rare to found until I figured out how I can create one. So I got a bulb, electric bulb. I removed the contact, then I could put water inside, and it was able to enlarge images. So from there, I was also able to make some projectiles. I could get a kerosene lamp with there and a slider. Yeah, if the slider where we could see images on the whole. So as time went by, we going to find lenses, but then I started practicing how I can build a lens. Yeah, they were not all that clear, but I could see that when I dip them in water, we were able to enlarge. So as time goes by, I started improving. By the time when I reached somewhere 16 years, I was able to make it an absolute clear magnifier. And from there now, I started now building microscopes and telescopes. Yeah.
Mm.
So as time went by, the coming of computers, I was able now to connect my homemade microscope to the computer, where I was able to see the image instead of seeing them through lenses, but through a monitor, where I was also able to watch yeah, to correct the images using a computer. So otherwise, I started doing it long time ago. So with the lenses, with the microscopes, I saw a lot of things. Like as Luyando said, I completed my education without seeing what a microscope, even seeing a plant cell in fresh until when I created my own microscope. I was able to see plant cells, I was able to see bacterial cells, I was able to see my own blood cells, anything like that.
Briefly, I'd asked him about how perhaps gender plays in this way of practicing.
Mm.
Um, yeah, because usually it's like male apprentices or male youths that I find around the studio, and also we haven't had an opportunity to have like female young people who are artists who may be interested in it. So I just wanted to find how I wanted to ask him or just find out how gender plays in his way of practicing, be it basic science, be it carving, be it yeah working on stone or dead woods. Like how does he envision or how does he look at practicing in a way that is going to be much more gender inclusive, that's going to invite more genders to participate in the way that he practices? That's a question that was driving around my mind.
Yeah, yeah. Many the people that always have interest to do art, the art of coding boys. Yeah, I believe maybe because of the fish that we use. We normally use the cutting tools, which are absolutely sharp, also grinders. So now we have a culture that grinders are only held by men. They are sharpening tools, we call them tumbas. They are only held by men. Otherwise, the desire to educate them is always there. But otherwise, the what is the cultural aspect of believing that only males should hold embassy, get an image, still there. Yes, we have some institutions are given some institutions like the Malta, they encourage the girls and boys to work together. I'm sure the hope is there. Maybe in the future we'll be able also to encourage them to come and learn. Because I remember one moment we had an exhibition, we told to create an image. So what we did during that, the process of creating the image was to give to give the hatch party to girls so that they can be familiar with the tools. So to give them grinders, to give them those work that inside the build that they cannot handle. So we encourage them to do that.
Mm.
And also, I think to add on to that question, I think the last question that I had was the title of our studio visit was Under Basic Conditions, We Can Do Much Better. And I think my question to him was, because I think it was the title, the working title that we used came from conversation. We're having a conversation with Mutemwa, either in the wilderness or here at the studio. And then he mentioned it was almost like a lamentation. Under basic conditions, I think we can do much, much better. So I want to just find out what are some of the limits of those basic conditions. Because it's almost like, oh, wow. Like right now, our client core is just for the basic conditions, like maybe access to continuous electricity, access to perhaps even the Zambezi River for reflections, because here in Livingstone district, the landscape is such that the town is much more accessible to tourists than the local residents. So most people would have, most local residents here will be even, you find somebody is over 35 years old, but perhaps they haven't had an opportunity to visit the Mosiotunya or even just be close to the river in recent years. So are sort of detached from detached from our land here. So but yeah, it's almost like an ask for basic conditions. So I wanted to ask him in his reflections or thinking about what are some of those limits of the basic conditions that we ask for. Because I think not just to say we should be asking for more for the sake of asking for more, but then like what are some of those limits? What are some of those things that limit the basic conditions that we ask for? I'm hoping my question is even much clearer because it's not very clear in my head.
That question by referring to science. Yeah, when you talk of basic conditions, also refer to basic science. Yeah, the science that we have is basic, and when it is looked upon by the people that can also use it, they view it as a primitive way of doing things. Okay. Yeah, for example, at one moment I was talking about maybe creating a boat that the local children can be using. But where do we access the river? The river is no longer for the locals. It's for commercial. It's for tourists. They've now made it impossible for us who are locals to access it. So there are so many conditions that doesn't allow us to flourish in many ways. Yeah. If, for example, I gave an example of a microscope. If I go to an institution where a microscope is needed, they'll say, this is not advanced. There is microscope, but this is the basic level of our knowledge. And for us to decolonize ourselves, we need to start it science from basic knowledge that we have. Agriculture from basic knowledge, a lot of things from basic knowledge. But you realize to say if people, because you are on the basic level, which is very much important, but compared to an advanced what objects made from China or Japan or England. But even those people from those civilized nations started from the basic. So a basic level is ignored to a point that it is limiting us from growing. Yeah, if I have to build a boat now, where am I going to find a river? But yet we have a lot of rivers here, but those rivers are only accessible by tourists. So the government sees the intention is only to provide the river bank to tourists, not the locals. So you will discover that locals won't have the knowledge to swim, locals won't have the knowledge on how their river looks like. So those are conditions that also limit that. Yeah. Government looks at the river for commercial. We are not able to access it. We want to be able to swim in our rivers. We want to be able to build our own boats and test them in the river. When we go based like creating our machines, there are primitives that cannot be, yeah, they cannot be given an opportunity to be seen or to be used. So those are things that bring us down.
How can I understand the basic condition?
Yeah, basic conditions come in different ways. Yeah. We talk about human rights. We can talk about basic conditions on the market, basic conditions in the museums, in the hospitals. There are so many basic conditions. But here I'm very much interested in conditions that also limit us from growing. Like not given an opportunity to showcase our basic knowledge. Because I believe if we are to go good in science, we need to start with the basic level. Maybe going boats in our rivers, we also need to be given an opportunity to reach the banks. So, like the way it is here in Livingstone, you discover that the river banks are covered by lodges, and the locals are not allowed to reach those levels. I mean, those what lodges. So, this is how I see
basic conditions. Yeah, and I think my addition to that would be to go back to like maybe the 1960s. And I think during the 1960s, there was like during the civil rights movements, there was, I think, the call from some people to just ask for civil rights, like of all the human rights that anybody could ask for, could benefit from. The cry was just for civil rights. So I think even in phrasing basic conditions, I think it can be put in that term. Being able to have access to our resources in a sense, not being restricted from doing some of the things that you'd seem that you'd I think you everybody would think are like, oh, it's a natural way of acting. Let's say I come across discarded material that I feel is quite interesting. Not far back in the 60s, but perhaps in the 70s. I heard this story also again from Mutemwa. Not even that far back into the 80s. But there are dumping sites around Livingstone. So when people would build, like, let's say, supersonic radios from here, they'll build cars from here back in the Second Republic. People would be able to, like, whenever those things were discarded, like, let's say, magnets or um, or discards from radios were discarded into like rubbish places. There are people who would go about and then like look for those elements that could build up a radio and then build their own radios. But then what was unfortunate is that whenever local people made their own radios here, the government could come and intervene and then stop people from building that because somehow they're seen as spies or interfering. That was a very, I think that's a very valid response from the government. So it's interfering with certain signals, and by then there was a current, like there was a dispute between Southern Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe, with Ian Smith and Zambia. So basic conditions could be just that. Access to resources and being encouraged by like the local, not having to, I don't know, cut how many corners, go through a lot of red tape just to be able to see something, or even to produce something that perhaps comes naturally to you. Yeah. But also basic conditions is also access to like electricity, which is something we complain about, especially here. Yeah, yeah. Access to electricity and access to stable internet, not being interfered with our internet, not being interfered with our electricity, but also being able to go to our local museum here and seeing our stories. And like having the stories of David Livingstone forced upon us to be seen as somebody who's like a hero, to be able to see. I don't know how many sculptures we see around here in our town that are not perhaps.
I would like to ask about the site that you are there. It looks very, very interesting. Is that your studio, about Mutemwa?
This is where I do some stuff that open area, with trees. Yeah, where I do some stuff, just building some stuff. This big stuff that I feel them using what homemade. Yeah, just to grinders. They have a lot of stuff that are made from stone. Recently established one moment to show you. So this is the. Also, I have a small room where I also make some small pendants from bronze, from some other material. Yeah, for sale. So this one is for.
It seems like your garden, is it?
No, it isn't a garden. Okay, you can see some flowers here and there. Otherwise, yeah, this is what I. This is what I like. Yeah, I like the what plants. Otherwise, as you can see, and go there. Yeah, this is the bench.
Uh-huh. Oh, wow.
The bench where I work using a grinder. Bang, here. You can see. Yeah. From there, I have. Yeah, this is also a hood that will be kept there. Yeah. Let me show you this one. Okay. Yeah. You see, these are baboons.
Baboons. Oh, I like to visit there. Oh, yes. Yeah, I can
You
see
can
that.
see. Yeah. So pictures.
Oh, many faces. I see.
Oh yeah, these are many faces about
Ah.
yeah, baboons. You can see. They what is the hood is called iron hood. One of the hardest hood around.
Mm.
Yeah. So it was a dead hood. So I went there to extract it, doing what we want on
Mm.
it. Yeah. I like making baboons and ladies. Yeah. So now with the stones, yeah.
Glasses. Wearing glasses. Ah. Oh, wow.
This is a what? It's
Wow.
granite. One of the rocks around. It's granite.
Naoko able to recognize his face.
Well, it's not Mr. Kaunda, no.
No. But you're close, in the line of presidents. He's the current president.
Ah, Hichirema
Yes.
Takande.
Sorry. So it's granite. So this is granite. It's one of the hardest stones around. Yeah, this is a granite. Also, I've got another one here.
Oh, who is this?
His face you may not be able to recognize, but
Yeah.
he was, maybe you tell the story.
This one is Alitunga, also on granite. Alitunga
Oh, great.
was born in 1842 and died in 1916. One of our greatest leaders. Yeah. He was also a honorary president of African National Congress. He was a traditional leader of an ancient kingdom called the Barotseland, now Western Zambia.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. Among the earliest advocates of independence. Hence,
Yes,
he is the
yes,
honor. Yeah, hence he's the honorary president of African National Congress.
I see. So the granite is local.
Yeah, it's local. Yeah, it's one that we use when making concrete. We mix with the what cement to make concrete. One of the hard. It's about 20 times harder than a marble.
I
So,
see.
In the line of Africa, the celebration of Africa Day or Africa Week or Africa Freedom Day was
Mm.
Luanika, his name is, and it's a Lozi name. I think it translates to the uniter.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
So
fire.
unifier. So he got the nickname the unifier, Lewanika.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. So it was big on unity in African nations, and he was able, under his reign, he was able to bring about a lot of tribes together in the western province of Zambia, so the then Baratse kingdom. So a lot of people who had been perhaps subjugated under that time in history were brought together as part of the subjects of the kingdom that he was ruling. So those are some of the narratives around him. He was also a sculptor. He was also an artist, right?
Yeah, he was also an artist.
Yes. So there's some of his artworks. They're not seen here. First time I came across some of the stories of his artwork when there was a conversation at Lukat by Karen Milborn. She was the curator of the Smithsonian. So she was doing research on the western province of Zambia, and that's when I came across there's some of the artwork that were created by him and that were created under his reign are actually stored in, I think, should be Sweden or Switzerland. I'm not sure which country, but in an ethnographic museum in the West, and then we haven't had like access to some of the work, like being able to see some of the work.
Wow.
He was a king in his time, but yeah, he would. Because I think art then was a way. It's a way of being. I think even now how it's being practiced, outside being the artist who's like, oh, just doing, but it was a way of being. Like he would convene his subjects, convene some of his students. It was a way of like sharing knowledges and all.
And most of these works were utility tools, utility arts. Yeah, where maybe a stool you sit on a table where you can eat. Also knives, spears. So long time ago, our art as African.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, tell me about the drawing, please.
Oh yeah, the drawing. Oh yeah, yeah. This is malaria plasmodium. Yeah, when I did the research, they call it OVO or malaria plasmodium because malaria plasmodium come in different forms. There are a number of species, but this one that I could find around here was OVO. The OVO plasmodium, OVO, is almost oval shaped. It's almost oval shaped. Yeah. So this is the one that I found in nature. So now what I did was, I was very much lucky at that time. I was able to connect my microscope to a computer. So I came up with this image, extracting it from computer, pasting in nature, my computer now to a paper. So what I'm trying to do here to elaborate more about it in terms of putting some organelles, because in biology the content of a bacteria or the enzyme of a bacteria are not called organ, they are called organelles. So what I'm trying to do here is now to start adding the remaining organelles to complete it, so that this can also be used in schools. Because I got it from nature. I got it from nature. Then being an artist, yes, I was able to put it on the paper. So what I want to do with it is, as soon as I finish, I donate them to schools so that they can be using it. Also, with an information to say, this one was done using basic science. So this is basic science. From the discarded materials, a microscope, then connected to a computer, then an image like this one. Because I've gotten a lot of images of bacteria of different types. So what I was thinking that we can have an exhibition of images of bacteria. Yeah, because like what I normally do, I'm able to see them using my microscope. Then I can also connect to the computer so that I can record. So I have got a great number of these images, so much that I would want in the future to have an exhibition. Yeah. So upon viewing them and editing them, I'm able to reach an extent that you will be able even to see the contours of top of these bacteria. Meaning we can use those images with contours to make with our own hands a three-dimensional bacteria, either from granite or from another material. We're hoping in the future we'll be able to make an exhibition where you can see videos of bacteria. Yeah, we have them, videos of bacteria. Yeah, still images of bacteria or on what on 2 dimensions, and finally maybe on granite 3 dimension, where you'll be able to touch a bacteria. You'll be able to touch in 3 dimensions. Reach an extent that able to make some contour lines on a bacteria. So those contour lines will make us able to make a 3 dimension.
I
Sort of
see.
like a sculpture. But so that you will be able to hold with your own hands. So reach those levels.
What's those green part at the top? There are 3 parts.
Yeah. When you view Mutemwa Mukelebai Museum, you see these patches are there. So it's part of those, and that's where perhaps you find the materials like DNA. Yeah, those we call it RNA because it is a bacteria.
It looks like a map. You know?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Is that a map or what? Interesting.
I'm sure you're able to see these patterns.
Yes.
That makes it organized in a malaria plasmodium. So now we are enlarge them to a point of seeing the molecules. So they are molecules. These are molecules. These patterns are molecules, usually. So this is what we are trying to do with this one.
But interesting. It looks like a map of it's a map, I guess, of
Yeah, it is.
bacteria. Luyando mentioned about you saw the surface. You analyzed the surface of Jupiter.
Oh yeah. Like with these homemade telescopes, that we build. The surface that you can see clearly are surface of the moon.
The moon.
Yes, because I remember when I first did that I was able also to see the movement of the light of the sun, the movement of the sunlight, the shadows. We see the shadow shifting in the craters of the moon. Yes, you could see that. You could see the landscape. You could see the shadows moving. Yeah, just like the way you see you are here on Earth. Now with Jupiter, you'll be able to see the moons. Yeah, with also the surface, but not absolutely as clear as it is on the moon.
Is that because of the distance?
Yeah, it's the distance. It's the distance, and you see like what they normally do when you create that machine. Yeah, you get that machine, you work on it, you edit it. Like even NASA does that.
Do you make work out of the surface you've been seeing, just like a drawing you made from the?
No, I haven't done that yet. But what I have is the surface of the sun. Yeah, my main interest mainly building of microscope and seeing bacteria. But because I'm using lens, I'm also able to create telescopes, of which I'm building one right now as I'm speaking. What I normally do with the telescopes and microscopes, I'm also able to connect them to machines. That also helps me to store those images. Yeah, as well as working on them. What I mean by working on them is to edit, adding color so that the images can come out clear. Very interesting process. Yeah, very interesting process.
Oh, so you can probably output those images in end, or you can probably transform.
Surely.
You mentioned about shadows that you see on the surface of moon. In Japan, where I'm from, we see the shape of rabbit in the shadow, and we have almost like a tale, like a folk tale about like a rabbit making a rice cake. It looks like a kind of pounding rice to make a rice cake.
Oh yeah.
Do you have that kind of tale?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, you talked about the tale from Japan concerning the image on the moon. Yeah, you said it is a rabbit preparing a cake. For us here, it is also a rabbit, but also playing an African drum. Yeah, maybe the vision might be due to the difference in terms of latitudes. Here we view it as a rabbit as well, but playing an instrument. Yeah, there's also a folk tale, yeah, from the same called Kalima Malundu. Yeah, it has a song, Kalima Malundu, ndetera mwanangu, unse balima bala kotoka, ndetera mwanangu. Yeah, it talks about this girl was almost careless in terms of keeping her baby. So parents could advise her to be careful until one day the baby was snatched by a rabbit. So we started crying and sang the song Kalima Malundu.